Well, all right, we're back, or I'm back. I hope you're back. And, well, it's high time I made another video. Yeah, I was going to put out one on Thursday, and then I didn't get a chance to make one. And today's Monday, as I'm recording this, and I should have put one up today. And, well, I can't because I'm still making the video. And, whatever. I have a little trouble adhering to these schedules, and I only just set the schedule. I thought I'd do Mondays and Thursdays, and, well, so much for that. So we'll see how this goes going forward. But today I have a sort of a cool, unusual new type of video that I've been wanting to do for a while, and well, this will be an ongoing series, I think, and well, this is going to be the first installment, and it's a series called Fantasy Albums. And now the idea behind fantasy albums is putting together albums that don't really exist, made up of actual existing material, of say a band that is broken up. If you can go, like, well, I'm doing the Beatles right now on this video. It's going to be about the Beatles, and so I've done a series of sort of fantasy 70s Beatles albums, because, you know, and we've all done this. A lot of you Beatle geeks out there, we're all Beatle geeks, right? We've done this. Gone through and, like, figured out, you know, well, these solo McCartney tracks could go with these solo Lennon tracks, right? But it's really tough to do it right. And everybody's going to have their own idea of how it works, or what songs should be there. You know, your own personal taste is going to go into it. You're going to be like, well, I'm going to leave out that song because I don't like it. But really the right way to do it is to kind of leave your own personal taste out of it. But it's impossible to do that entirely. I know that my taste certainly went into my choices for this album. And, well, this first Beatles album, what I'm going to do is I have a series of them, like I said, to the 70s, and this is the first one. This is going to be the 1970 album. Yeah, had they done an album later in 1970, based on material that we have, what would it be? I mean, obviously, had they not broken up and they made another album a few months later, there would be songs that we've never heard, probably, that would be on that album, because just different events. You know, band doesn't break up, that creates this event that wouldn't have happened otherwise, creates this event, and those events create songs that don't exist but would have existed, and you know what I mean? So it's not like, had they continued into 1970, 71, the songs that we already have are going to be, it's not like those would be the songs definitely that they would have on offer for the band, but a lot of them would be. Anyway, so all we can do really is sort of do this based on what exists. And so what I've done is I've gone through and you figure, okay, all four of them have 1970 albums. You know, John has Plastic Ono Band, McCartney has McCartney, George Harrison has All Things Must Pass, Ringo has two albums, Sentimental Journey and Buku's a Blues. None of those tracks are on my Beatles album, my 1970 Beatles album. I hate to leave Ringo out, but there's just nothing on there that realistically could be eligible for a proper Beatles album. They're all covers, and you know, a new Beatles album in 1970 they wouldn't have put a cover on it for Ringo to sing. He wouldn't have done Bye Bye Blackbird on a new Beatles album. It just wouldn't have happened. And so Ringo is absent from this one, and that's okay, because there are albums that Ringo's absent from. He's not on Let It Be. You know, he's not on, what else is he not on? I don't think he's on Beatles for Sale, you know. So whatever. And, but, so I went through and I just chose songs that well, what I consider the best songs from the three, the Paul, George, and John albums, and, you know, thought realistically about what really is the more quality material. In some cases, that didn't always work. I mean, like, for instance, Mother is a great Lennon track. I mean, such a classic. But I actually left it out because it just didn't fit the album, and I just had a whole list of reasons why it took up too much real estate, too. That was another thing. Because I wanted to, when I decided how many songs were going to go on the album, rather than go, oh, well, an album should be 12 tracks, what you got to do is you have to look at how long the program is. How long would the album be? The album would be, you know, maybe roughly 44 minutes, sort of. And and you want to kind of max out because there's so many great tracks on these albums. I mean, George alone, how many great tracks are on his album? Plastic Ono Band, it's all great tracks. So you kind of want to maximize how many songs you can fit on here. And if you look at, say, the White Album, I think side 1 has, 8 or 9 tracks on it? Some of the tracks are short, but again, the number of tracks isn't really what's decided, it's how long the program is. So, yeah. So I ended up with, what did I end up with? 14 songs, which is kind of a classic Beatles track number. And, so anyway, how's that for a babble intro? But I'm going to get right onto this. I should point out, I forgot to point out, Sam, this is my first fantasy album episode, and I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. I don't know how I'm doing this. So I decided to call the album Everest, and I'm not the first to do this. Everest was the original title for Abbey Road. That was a title that was considered for Abbey Road that was discarded. So, and that's another thing in putting these together. As much as possible, I want to use legitimate Beatles material. That title is a legitimate Beatles title, an unused one, but I didn't come up with it. They came up with it. So, okay, use that. And the cover, which you saw, the thumbnail of me holding up the cover, obviously that's not real. That's photoshopped. I held up a White Album and I superimposed this image on it, just so you know. I don't actually have an Everest album here. But, so that image is, a lot of the Beatle geeks know, you've seen this if you scour the internet. This is an unused piece of Beatles illustration that was supposed to be for the White Album, maybe? Or was it for Sgt. Pepper? Basically, it's an image that was supposed to be used for a Beatles album that they ended up rejecting. And, the image of their heads inside the mountain had Sgt. Pepper era Beatles, so I replaced them with 1970 Beatles. So now I'm going to start going through the tracks. Now, keep in mind, this is just my sort of version of it. We've all done this. A lot of you guys have done it. I mean, back in the 80s, I used to do it, making mixtapes, try to put together sort of makeshift 70s Beatles albums, and, I would look back at them over time and go, Jesus, really? I put that one on there? Why is that there? Oh, this is terrible. So I think that it would be the same with this one. I really put a lot of time and effort into this, but, a year from now, I could look back at it and go, really? You put that song on there? You put that as in that spot? Why did whatever. So you never really can get it truly right, I guess, because we never really know how it would be. But okay, so finally, let's get to the tracks. I'm going to go track by track on this. And so side 1, track 1. One of the greatest McCartney songs ever written in any era, Beatles or non-Beatles, bar none, one of McCartney's greatest tracks, and it deserves an opening track spot on this album. Maybe I'm Amazed. Yeah. I was always kind of surprised. I mean, the McCartney album is such an uneven album, and it's just filled with so much fat and just so much sort of half-assed junk on it, really, as it were. And this track is sort of buried late in side 2. I never understood that. Yeah, I mean, it works well as a side closer, but looking at the tracks that I chose for the album, this really seemed like the strongest opener. And and that's definitely a best foot forward track. Okay, so that goes really nicely into what is a really great second track. I mean, it just sounds like a second track on an album. Instant Karma from John Lennon. Now, Instant Karma is a single, or was a single in 1970. It wasn't actually on Plastic Ono Band, as most of you know. But I put that on there. Well, it just sounds like it sounds very Beatle-y. That sounds like it would be a Beatles track. It had the Beatles still existed later in the 70s and they'd done this, this could have been one of their songs. And then that goes into another John track from the Plastic Ono Band album, Hold On. So Hold On is track 3. And I feel like the sort of bounciness of Instant Karma goes nicely into kind of like the mellow, semi kind of laid back sort of feel of Hold On. And it's good to have a couple of John tracks back to back, because that's the other thing. A lot of people I see when they do their makeshift 70s Beatles albums, they never have back-to-back songs of a particular, like it's always Paul, John, George, Ringo, Paul, John, George, and that's not how a Beatles album works. I mean, the way they sequenced those albums really was just how the songs worked. It really didn't matter who sang it. They didn't go, oh, we can't have too many Paul songs in a row. I mean, look at Sgt. Pepper. Side one of Sgt. Pepper has like 3 Paul songs in a row, I think, right? At least. So it's kind of realistic to have 2 John songs back to back. So track number 4 on side 1 is a George song, My Sweet Lord. Now, My Sweet Lord is one that if I probably would have left off if I was only taking into consideration my own taste. It's a great song, but I'm a little sick of it. There are other George songs from All Things Must Pass I would rather hear, but I had to really think, a Beatles album would have the strongest songs, and that would definitely be one of those really, A-level tracks from this album, like Here Comes the Sun, or like something, you know what I mean? So yeah, it needs to be there, and it needs to be well represented on side 1. So coming out of My Sweet Lord, we go back to another Paul song, one of only 2 on side 1. It's a little tough to get a lot of Paul songs in this album because, well, I'm working with the McCartney album, and there aren't a lot of good songs, or aren't a lot of solid tracks on that. But this is a great. This is second only to Maybe I'm Amazed, in my opinion. Every Night. Yeah, Every Night is, I lost count, 4. It's the 5th track on side 1. Yeah, what a great one. I mean, that's really McCartney's first album. If the whole album was on the level of Maybe I'm Amazed and Every Night, whew, man, I don't know. I think I would like that better than Ram. But, as it is. But hey, we're in Fantasyland, where this is Everest from 1970, the Beatles album. So, coming out of Every Night, I'm reading my notes here. Coming out of Every Night, we go to another George track. You got to try to get as many of those George tracks in because there's so many of them. But probably, one of my 2 very favorite songs on the All Things Must Pass album, Let It Down. Yeah, Let It Down is so, oh man, it's just epic. It's gorgeous, and it's epic, and it's just sweeping and great. And that's the second to last, the penultimate track on side 1. It sounds like it should be the last track on a side, right? In fact, on All Things Must Pass, it's a side closer. But I decided that it would be really great to have that sort of fade off and then give way to just one last low-key track, and that is 7th track on side 1, the final track for this side, Isolation by John Lennon. Yeah, which is side 1's closer on Plastic Ono Band. And that's another thing, that when I was sequencing this, where songs already exist on the albums that they're actually from, it did kind of influence me where I put them here, because Isolation is just, it just feels like it's a track, it's a side closer, so there you go. All right, so then we flip the album over and put it down the turntable, and there's a little half apple. And all right, and the first song on side 2, Ooh You, the first song on side 2 of the McCartney album. Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of this track. It's a good one, but I don't consider it A level. There are certainly better tracks, certainly better McCartney tracks, and definitely better tracks on this album. But it's a pretty strong side 2 opener, certainly out of what I have here. Not that there aren't other strong songs. There are actually much stronger songs, but it just has that first song on side 2 vibe to it. Maybe that's just because that's how I grew up listening to it, and we all know it as a side 2 opening track, so that's probably coloring my opinion, but what are you going to do? All right, so now track 2 on side 2, we go into I Found Out from John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, and this brings us into a bit more of a rockin' kind of vibe. Now that's the thing, a lot of this album is pretty mellow, and well, a lot of their stuff at that time really kind of was a bit laid back, wasn't it? I mean, even if you go to Abbey Road. I mean, a lot of the material is pretty mellow, and so yeah, I found out is a bit more of an upbeat kind of rock vibe to kind of take us out, because the Beatles do a lot of different, from one song to the next, you don't know what it's going to sound like, or what the what the style's going to be. So it's good to have stuff come out of left field here and there, because that's how they roll. All right, so I found out takes us into another George song, and this is my other very favorite song from All Things Must Pass, and it's the opening track, I'd Have You Anytime. Whew, what a track that is. But as much as I love that, I actually don't really hear it as an opening track for a side. I always found it an odd opener for that album. I mean, you have this sprawling double album, and I just feel like, even though that's one of the best songs, in my opinion, I just don't hear it as the opener. So I have it here as side 2, track 3. And so that gives way to track number 4 on side 2, which is back to Lennon, Look at Me, from Plastic Ono Band. And now we're going to start getting into like the White Album acoustic picking kind of part of the album, because that then goes right into McCartney's Junk from the McCartney album, and they work really well back to back. I feel like those two back to back definitely take you into a White Album kind of territory. And now, coming out of Junk, I definitely took an artistic liberty here. I did a cut at the end of Junk and cut right into Man We Was Lonely, so they kind of cut together almost like in a medley type way. And not really with the intention of trying to copy Abbey Road. For some reason, the idea came to me, and I tried it, and it sounded really cool, so I thought, well, yeah, why not? And so I have Junk cutting right into Man We Was Lonely, and Man We Was Lonely is one that I never really liked much off McCartney. I like it a lot better now, but when I was first listening to it, back in the day, that was one I would skip. Like, I didn't like it at all. But, over time, that one's grown on me a lot. And, I could hear it being on a Beatles album. And, that brings us to the closing track of the album. And, really, what better way to close out an album than All Things Must Pass? Yeah. And the thing is that people think of All Things Must Pass, the title of the George album, and the lyrics of the song, and they think it's about the Beatles' breakup. And it really isn't. I mean, that song existed. He brought that song into the Get Back sessions. Like, they were doing that song then. So it's not about the Beatles breaking up. I mean, it could be about him anticipating the breakup. Possibly, I don't know. But it wasn't written in response to the Beatles breaking up, or it wasn't written in the aftermath of the Beatles breaking up. I mean, and that is a song that I really wish the Beatles had done. I really wish they had actually finished polishing that off and had done it for Let It Be. That would be, with John and Paul in there on the harmonies, whew, man, that would be amazing. So, yeah, so that's the album as I put it together. I'm sure your opinions will be way different. Some of you might go, wow, yeah, that's really cool. And some of you might go, you don't know what you're talking about. And you know what? I welcome all those opinions, because that's just what they are, opinions. Just like my stupid little opinion on this. But this works for me, and I just thought I'd share it, because I thought it would be really fun. And, I made it a gatefold, because as you could see from the image, that it would have been a gatefold, the way the image goes across 2 panels. And so I did an inner photo. And, why don't I show you those first? Okay. So here you go. Here is the front cover. Right? See that? Got the heads there that I superimposed over. I put them over what were originally the 1967 heads. And then here's the back cover. And see, I put the song titles in there, and I put a little apple up in the corner, because that's what you got to do to make it look legit, right? Okay, and then here's the full gatefold of the image. See? And then, on the inside gatefold, it's the 1970 band photo. Kind of, sort of, a la Sgt. Pepper, I suppose, Yeah, alright, so, yeah, so I did that. I did all that in Photoshop, and just because I'm that geeky. And I forgot to show the other thing. I forgot to show one other thing. I actually did Photoshop actual records, actual record labels. So here is side 1 of the vinyl. yeah, I really went this far. Okay, and then of course side 2 with the half apple. Right? Yeah. Yes, I've got time on my hands, evidently, right? But so there you go. So there's the cover. There's the record. Would be cool if that really existed, right? Somebody out there, with one of you rich people out there, get to putting these together, will you? Fun. Now, I'm gonna kind of list off my leftovers. Now you think, well, yeah, we know what the leftovers are. All the ones you didn't use. Not necessarily. I didn't consider any and all song from those albums. I really kind of made a director's cut list that I chose from, and the songs that had been considered that I didn't choose are, let's see, Another Day, McCartney's Another Day. That didn't make it. 2 reasons. 1, it just really didn't fit the vibe of the record, and 2, it's a little too late. It was recorded really late in 70, and it was released in early 71. It's just timeline-wise, it just doesn't work. Oh Woman, Oh Why, I really wanted to choose that, or I wanted to use that one too. It's a great track, but in the end, I decided it wouldn't go on because it was too B-side. I mean, it's the B-side of Another Day, and it just sounds too much like a B-side. It's not album quality. Like they wouldn't have used that song. Mama's Little Girl is a song they might have used, and I think he had it at the time, but the recording that we have is from the Red Rose Speedway period, and it sounds like it. It has that 72, 73 kind of sound to it, so that wouldn't have worked. I left out That Would Be Something. It's just too insubstantial. Cold Turkey I left out because it didn't fit. Mother I left out because I felt it didn't fit, and I felt like it took up too much, like I said, took up too much real estate. I would have had to leave out 2 songs to put that in. I didn't put in Remember. I didn't put in Love. And I actually was going to put Dara Dune on the album. I considered it. It was on my list being considered, but I left that out. Maybe it'll be on the next one. But what else? If Not For You, From All Things Must Pass, isn't it a pity? And I considered Dream from Sentimental Journey, the Ringo track. But, as I mentioned early in the video, they wouldn't have put a Ringo doing a cover on their album. So that didn't make it. So, so there you go. That's the album. Now, what I did is, what I wanted to do was I wanted to upload the album as a separate video, just as the audio, with the visual being the cover images and stuff. And, of course, I tried that, and it got blocked right away, which, I mean, I don't know. You do that, you try to put up something like that, and they block you, and then I go and I do a search, and somebody has put up the entirety of Revolver. The entire Revolver album is up. And apparently that's okay, but whatever. And so I put it up on Google Drive, and it's the link is in the description below, and you can go there and you can listen to the album as I put it together, complete with that little cut from Junk to Man We Was Lonely, and the images will be the images that I photoshopped together for the album. And you can try to experience the album as well, if not as the Beatles intended, as I intended. And so, it's just a fun thing, nothing to be taken seriously, and, I'm sure people will be commenting, going, that they would never have done that, it would never have been this way. Who cares? I'm having fun. And, that's all it is, it's just fun, it's no big deal. And, alright, so, be sure to subscribe, be sure to click the little bell when you subscribe, be sure and comment, even all your mean comments, and, like, definitely like, and please come back and watch the videos again, and in the future I'll have more, and that'll be that. See you next time.